Hi, this is Tatiana Kolovu, and this is Stronger, the November edition of my LinkedIn newsletter. By the way, if you're listening to this, I really appreciate you listening to the audio version. It's something that I started when I started the newsletter. I enjoy reading it out loud. I do make quite a few edits along the way and some comments, so I hope you enjoy it as well. Stand out with your personal pitch. You train in Jujitsu and you left that for the end of your tell me about you pitch? That was my honest reaction when listening to Aboira, my first year MBA student, while he worked on his personal pitch. He was pivoting from a well established path in one industry and setting his goals on something new. I was advising him on perfecting his pitch to help him stand out. Have you considered your own personal pitch? When someone asks, tell me something about yourself in a job search or networking setting, many of us revert to verbalizing our entire resume. Or worse, we start with our autobiography. I was born and raised in a small village, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing wrong with honoring your heritage and personal journey, but most people don't have time for a long-winded introduction. In today's rocky environment and rocky employment landscape, it's essential that your personal pitch is perfectly crafted so you stand out. So, here are 4 tips for success. Do your homework. Whether it's a scheduled interview call, a casual networking event, or a chance encounter with a fellow passenger on a flight, your audience will never be the same. Regardless of the formality of the setting, take the time to learn about both the person you are speaking to and their company or their industry. For example, in an impromptu conversation, when someone asks you to share some information about yourself, you might close with something like, "Well, as you can see, one of my passions is working with data. So, from what I know, that's at the heart of what you do with your projects. Could you tell me more about your latest success with blah blah, enter industry here?" I'm really interested on how you manage those large sample sizes. Now, this example demonstrates 2 things. One, that you've studied the company the professional represents, and 2, that you're interested in something beyond your own story, which links you to their project. This tactic now goes beyond networking into building rapport. That's a whole different newsletter, and building a connection. When you meet with prospective employers, it can be very advantageous to use this approach. Number 2, hit the highlights. Just like a well-crafted newspaper headline, you want to be succinct but also memorable. Aboira revealed his love for Jiu-Jitsu and made it one of his main themes. His interviewers will remember him as the disciplined Jiu-Jitsu marketer versus simply an MBA student wanting to transition into strategy consulting. I often introduce myself as an academic immigrant who came to the United States in the name of education and now helps students and professionals learn new skills. After your headline or your intro statement, you can add a for example link to make your pitch more specific to the audience. If I was speaking with an academic colleague, I would frame education in a very different example than if I was talking to someone in a corporate learning and development role. Your own highlight might be a lifelong passion or a personal value. If you're in data analytics, you might open with, "I love making sense of data." If you're an engineer, you might open with, "I've always been curious about how things were built. Ever since I was in grade school, I would take things apart." And of course, that story can follow up with a short example of appliances you dissected, making your parents furious. There's always place for a memorable dash of humor. Number 3, quantify and detail. When you describe experiences and give examples, go from abstract to specific. Adding details helps to create a more complete picture of your accomplishments. This is an absolute must for a written resume, so imagine that your personal pitch is a condensed version of that resume. Examples of things you might note are, for example, how large was the facility you managed, or how many direct reports did you have, or how long or how large was the budget. Be sure to provide some additional information when referring to other cities or countries rather than assuming your audience knows their geography, domestic or international. When it comes to industries or products that may be less well known, your best bet is to draw parallels. One of my former students was working on a platform that allowed companies to host their own virtual meetings versus using the popular Zoom or Teams platforms. To explain the problem that his platform was solving, he would say, imagine that you're inviting clients over and instead of your conference room, you host them in a rented WeWork space. What a great example, right? Anytime you're working on your personal pitch, run it by friends and colleagues. Ask them to listen for details, ask for clarifications, and help you decide if you need to add a for example or a just imagine phrase to help make it more memorable. And finally, probably the most important tip here. I mean, you're not going to be surprised. It's be prepared. This part of your personal pitch is critical to your success. After you have a sense of what you plan to say and you know how to adapt it on the fly based on your audience, you need to practice, practice, practice. Try to avoid just reciting anything you've scripted out. Instead, memorize or retain your top highlights and then leave your pitch on a voicemail to a friend. Walk your dog and talk it out. Practice with your grandma over the holidays. The more you speak it in different settings and with practice with different audiences, the easier it will be to flow for you. The easier it will flow for you. I've designed a course on LinkedIn Learning called Designing the Authentic Personal Pitch course. Oh, this needs some editing already. And it points out important verbals and nonverbals you should be aware of. The course also touches on face-to-face examples, phone and virtual camera settings. Check it out with this link. One additional useful tool I recommend is Udily.ai. This platform just became available for using it on mobile. These guys are amazing. And it gives you feedback on your camera setup, your eye contact, and other important analytics related to the tone and speed of your speech. Use each of these tools to find your most natural cadence and the right energy for the setting to discover your most authentic voice. You want to sound conversational, comfortable, and confident. Now, if you're wondering what happened with Aboira and how he's doing with his Jujitsu pitch, well, guess what? If you're my student, you get voluntold. No, it's truly, I invited him to tell us firsthand. So I have a video here where you can see him in action, and I'm sitting at the business school cafeteria with headphones on because it's really noisy. All right. Stronger live office hours. These are the last ones of the year, so don't miss this. And I could not even think of a more suitable and credible guest than Scott Mounts. He's a friend, a fellow LinkedIn Learning instructor, and he and I will discuss the mindset of pitching yourself in the job market during an exciting and challenging times of a career pivot. This is going to be Thursday, December 1st. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the sign-up link is in the newsletter. Follow me on LinkedIn. Sign up is there, and be sure to send the Stronger newsletter to a friend who might benefit from listening to it or reading it. Thank you so much for following me. Thank you so much for listening to the newsletter. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Take care.